Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your egoistic hosts out for revengeance.
I am John.
And I'm CC. And when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we've got you covered. Today I will tackle the other most dangerous of anime sports after golf, soccer, or football, whatever you prefer to call it. So join me when I take part in the harsh training regimen of Blue Lock to find the true Japanese egoist soccer superstar. And after that, we will assemble a highly skilled team of assassins to complete a couple of impossible hit job missions in Revenger. Sounds like a bloody good time, so grab your football gear, rate your stashes of hilariously over-the-top weapons, and definitely don't pause the pod. We'll be right back. In 2018, the Japanese national soccer team finished 16th in the FIFA World Cup. As a result, there's unrest in the Japanese soccer community. Many of the older patrons of the sport aren't too disturbed by the lack of trophies, but newcomer Anri Terry is furious, and she's determined to fix what she sees as the problem with Japanese players. To that end, she hires maverick trainer Jinpachi Ego, a genuine football enigma who relies on unconventional strategies and employs radical training methods. His master plan to lead Japan to stardom is Blue Lock, a bootcamp for U18 players designed to create the world's greatest egoist striker. Those who fail Blue Lock will not be permitted to represent any Japanese soccer team ever again. Yoichi Isagi is one of the boys chosen for the camp. Still bitter about making a split decision that cost his high school football team their place in the nationals, he joins Blue Lock in hopes of improving himself and overcoming the limitations of his playing style. Initially conflicted about the ethical implications of Ego's project, he quickly finds himself compelled to crush the other competing diamonds in the rough beneath his cleats. He may be number 299 out of 300, but nothing and no one is going to stand in his way of coming out on top. Blue Lock is based on a manga written by Muneyuki Kaneshiro and illustrated by Yusuke Nomura. The manga started in 2018, currently counts 24 volumes and is still running. The anime we're going to talk about now is produced by 8-Bit, who we've already mentioned on this podcast because they did the animation for That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. The animation in that show was good, and the animation in Blue Lock is as good as in Slime Time, if not better. Neat camera angles, cool tracking shot, fluid choreography. I think I haven't seen a sports anime that high budget looking since Haikyuu. Looking at the crew list, this was a pretty big production. Damn Bamco bucks again, I guess. I also like the sharp character designs. The CG models aren't great, but thankfully they are pretty much only used for long distance scenes. That's how you do it, people. The backdrops are maybe the biggest and only downside in this, since outside of the matches, it's all gray rooms and corridors. And during the match, it's just the green pitch and gray walls again. No audience either. It's no deal breaker, because the action on the playing field speaks for itself, but a good audience reaction can do a lot to elevate hype levels in sports anime. Haikyuu has shown us that. So I can't say that I didn't miss it at times. But overall, the presentation of this show, as a complete package, is close to God tier. All the crazy shots of swirly or firelit eyes and contorted faces, swerving cameras, players disassembling into puzzle pieces in their minds when they make a split decision, other players turning into an image of the looming Grim Reaper when appearing out of nowhere to throw a wrench in the plans of our heroes. It's so over the top and so amazing, and I love it. You know, I dig that shit. I just love over the top sports anime. Add to that all the great voice work, the crunchy sound effects, the great soundtrack by Jun Murayama, who apparently has only done theme song arrangements and not a full anime OST until this show. The director Tetsuaki Watanabe also has mostly done episode direction until this point, so these two are kind of nailing it with their first step at the big league. Talk about the debut, man. Hot damn. So yeah, that's it about the presentation. Nothing really to complain there, at least not much. But what about the story and the characters? What is this series even about? If you've listened to our sneak peek 2 seasons ago, 2 or 3. I don't know when when I talked about this. But yeah, this series is not just a simple soccer show. It's kind of a series that asks a very important question: what if Kaiji or Squid Game, but with soccer or football? As I already mentioned in the summary, the stakes are high. Whoever loses in one of the several fucked up minigames Jinpachi has come up with basically has their career killed and will never play for Japan ever. So yeah, you might want to go here and try to improve yourself, but think about it first, maybe.
This Jinpachi is kind of the polar opposite of the Jinpachi I'm thinking of from Tekken, man. Jeez.
Yeah. So I don't know if actually like he makes good on his word. We have seen in the first season of this, we have seen the players. We have seen players fail and being eliminated in very dramatic ways, of course. In these 24 episodes, but so far we have not had any confirmation in series that like their careers have really been killed, or if it's just like a motivational thing by Ego where he's like, I'm just telling you that shit because I want to get you motivated and have you like overcome your limits and stuff like that. So he might be just fucking with them, but it might also be true. So. High risks, high rewards? ? We'll see. The show takes this premise incredibly serious, but at the same time is also very tongue-in-cheek. That's the way I like it. The coach and the team in the beginning, like Isagi's team, when they lose their entry to the nationals, like they are doing this over dramatic crying, because the third years are leaving, and Isagi has like these hyper oblivious parents. There is in the first episode, there's like a couple of kids there who are getting scared and running away because Isagi talks to himself because he's so mad at himself for losing the game. And those scenes are a riot, and there are definitely more later in the show where it's like, it's a very ridiculous thing, but the show is like super earnest about it, and that's super fun. And also a lot of jokes in the series just in general. It's like these typical sports anime, lots of dudes being treating each other like kids kinda, and are being at odds with each other. Each of them have their own little character flaws and like these neuroses, maybe it's the right word. One character who you wouldn't expect that to be is kind of very, everything has to be in its correct place. Don't put your towel there, right? And another character who
sort of OCD.
Yeah, OCD kind of. And another character who you would expect to be that is not that. It is like the most lazy fucker who's just causing constant disorder in everything. So it's super fun to see these characters clash with each other, and especially being surprised by how these characters behave, because some of them don't behave the way you expect them to. The show is very good at that. I laughed a lot more in this series than I expected, and a lot of the jokes seemed intentional and not be the result of, hey, this show doesn't know what it is. It definitely knows what it is. And what its tone is, and what it's going for. And I'm here for it. But yeah, Blue Lock, this boot camp that these 300 players are in, top-ranked players, works in very interesting ways. Like, Jinpachi has created this very elaborate system on how people are ranked in each of the mini games, how the whole ranking system works. Like, there are 25 teams, B to Z. Isagi is in Team Z, so the lowest ranked. So, of course, they have to work the hardest to move past the other teams. And the way to do that is by doing well in Ego's little training exercises, like playing tag, and in the matches that themselves also have special rules and conditions. You might think, what the fuck does playing tag with a ball have to do with soccer? But the way Jinpachi explains it, it actually makes kind of sense, like what his intentions are. And if you do well in these exercises and these games, you can enjoy more comfortable living arrangements and other luxuries. You can exchange goals for benefits like special food, beds, phones, and a day off outside. Like a gamified prison sentence, really. And
I don't like this.
I would like it if I was there, but it's really kind of morbid fun to see the characters like really competing with each other for their benefits and being really happy. Oh my god, I don't have to eat porridge anymore. I can have a nice fucking steak because I did well in my game. It's really sinister, but it's also fun to look at. It's an interesting system, and it feels really well thought out and really well integrated into the series. The first actual match setup is interesting too. All 5 teams of one of the 5 sections of Blue Lock play against each other. Only the top 2 teams will advance. The other 3 will be kicked out, but the top 3 scorers from the losing teams will advance too. So, do you play Paragon from Mass Effect, support your team and bring it to victory, even risking going down with them if it doesn't work out? Or do you go the Renegade route and only try to hog the ball and score as many points by yourself as possible so that you have a sure ticket to advance, even if it means abandoning your teammates and killing their careers in the process? What a hilariously evil concept. I love it. And it definitely comes into play later when people start selling out their teams to advance as single top scorers. It's wild. But, and that is the best part, it's not without actual meaningful intent. In the first match, Team Z almost completely implodes. Everyone is out for themselves. It's pure chaos. Team X starts out like that as well, but one of the players turns out to be so good that he becomes a dominant force that he immediately gains the full confidence and support of his team members, which enables them to form a strong team around him. And this is necessary because, like, none of these people have played together, right? So it's kind of like a king and his court thing, if you want. And this was only possible with one ego being so big that it out-egos the others and pushes them into subservience, which benefited the team play immensely. So these weird game setups are actually forcing everyone to think out of the box and break away from classic soccer roles, develop their own set of skills that do not necessarily fit into the standard framework of forward, defender, goalkeeper, etc. It's a very interesting concept. I liked it a lot. It was like, hey, you have the standards thing that has had the same rules forever, and we still have to adhere to certain rule sets. But what if we like completely rethink the roles these players have in this made-up game and what they can do with that? And I always like when there's like out-of-the-box thinking when it comes to anime and, in this case, sports. So that's a cool thing what the show is doing here with all of this. And the second selection is even more video gamified, with tasks like scoring 100 goals against a hologram, or forming teams of 3 and then fighting another 3-man team to steal one of their players upon winning and then moving on to the next level with this new player. These are all neat ideas that keep the match setups and character constellation interesting and varied. It's not always the same teams playing together. Character constellation get very often remixed in this show, where it's like, oh, now you have these 2 characters who were on opposing sides, but now they're playing together. And now these 2 different character types are clashing and have to learn to work together. And that's constantly getting remixed and keeps it like very interesting. So again, another thing I really liked about the show. And again, it makes sense for like the whole idea that apparently Ego has, because the players have to constantly reimagine themselves and reimagine their playing style, reimagining their role on the pitch and everything. So it's super cool. Like all of this, it feels like, yeah, this is super over the top, and some of it is really, really dumb, just in terms of how over the top and presented it is. But it all kind of makes sense the way he you see what he's trying to do. He's trying to make these players, these characters, constantly challenge their own worldview, their own view on their playing style, their view on on the concept of this game. So it's really interesting. And the different kind of trials are designed like to force the players to identify their weak spots, because otherwise they won't advance. They literally are their own puzzles they have to solve. So of course there's a lot of imagery of puzzle pieces flying around, players dissolving into and reforming from puzzle pieces and so on, which is visually really cool and interesting. It's of course, if you try to do that in live action or something, it kind of probably looks ridiculous, but it's so stylish in this show. It's so well animated and well designed and interesting camera angles and all that stuff. It works really well. How about the characters though? We have a bunch. I can't talk about all of them. Just quickly as an advance, one downside to the character roster. I know why this show kind of has to be a pure sausage fest, but most other sports anime at least manage to throw some female side characters in there, like managers or something. Like, Haikyuu has a lot. But in this, there really aren't any women at all. So it's just dudes all the time.
Mm.
I mean, they should have made Ego a woman to mix up the cast a bit, I think. I mean, at least there's Anri, who is kind of the instigator of this whole endeavor, but she rarely appears. And when she does, Jinpachi Ego completely steals her spotlight. So I hope that is something that will change in the future seasons when maybe we get an audience and stuff like that. But right now, it's just the dudes. And when we see a woman, she's with Jinpachi, and he kind of talks down to her and tells her what an idiot she is, kind of, because she doesn't get his ideas. Whatever. He's a madman. But that's one of the minor downsides of the character roster here. But yeah, talking about Ego Jinpachi, he's crazy. He always comes across like this more unhinged version of L from Death Note, both in demeanor, the way he looks and the way he acts and everything. Like he looks like this very introvert dude, but with crazy swirly eyes and everything, and has like a mean smile and shit. But you know, he's going on these tirades about what his ideas are and everything. But it's not like, oh my god, get this guy off the screen. He pulls you in with his shit. He's like, oh my god, this dude is a douche, but he's a really enticing douche. Like, he's interesting. He's captivating. He's spellbinding. He's kind of cool. So he is kind of like, I wouldn't say he's like the end boss of this, though he kind of is, because the players, of course, have to play against his rules, abide by his rules, but also try to break them and bend them and everything. So, and you never really know what he wants from the players. Like, he definitely has some plot twists in store for the contenders, let me say that much. Where it's like, oh, you think this is the way he set up this game, but then no. His intent is something completely different, and now you have to adjust. So, that's really cool. Aside from that, he's not really a presence that much. He's mostly like the guy looming in the background and giving the characters new headaches with each new trial. So it's pretty cool. But there are a bunch of other characters besides Ego and our main character Isagi that give the show more depth than I expected it to have. And before we get to our main character, let's talk about that. So I like series where there's more to the characters than meets the eye, and this is one of those. For example, the burly, arrogant monster King Baro turns out to be that fussy neatness junkie with a bit of an OCD that I talked about earlier. He's a real stickler for hygiene and everything having its proper place and order. You definitely wouldn't expect that looking at the dude and hearing the way he talks. And then we have one of our main guys in the beginning, in the team that Isagi plays in. And he's like, that's Kunigami, and he's kind of like this very big, kind of like, in terms of posture and the way he speaks and the way he looks, he's kind of like this superhero type character, like very straightforward, burly shonen guy, super cool, like straight shooter, honest dude, nice guy. And yeah, superheroes are kind of his thing, but not in the way you think. Like he says he didn't watch superhero shows like Super Sentai. He actually says that in the show. Instead, he watched soccer, and he wants to be a real life superhero, like the strikers he adored as a kid. A soccer superhero. It's nice seeing him and Isagi becoming friends and enjoying a steak together at some point. It's really cool. But yeah, as you can imagine, this will make it all the more emotional once they have to eliminate each other and doom one of their careers. So, is that happening in this season? Will that happen in the next season? I won't tell. But it's one of those inevitabilities that you always have in the back of your head, where it's like, oh man, I like both these characters, but only one of them can come out on top after this. Like, this is an elimination game. So, damn! That kind of sucks, but it's also really, really thrilling. So, then we have another character called Shiguri, who's kind of like the speedster of our main set of characters. But he has like this problem. He has a defect in his knee. He has had from an old injury. And so he's not going all out in the beginning. He's like, I'm scared to hurt myself again. And when I hurt myself again in the same way, that means my career is over. So I'm fucked. Like, I cannot even play I might not be able to play for Japan when I don't finish here, but I will not be able to play soccer, period, if I hurt myself again. So, of course, that's a burden on his mind and a burden on the team and everything. And, one of his character arcs is, of course, overcoming that. And by getting to know the other characters, them giving him their peace of mind about this and everything. So the eventual moment, and I don't consider this a spoiler because that's his obvious character trajectory, the moment when Chigiri unshackles himself, literally, visually, of course, in anime, because anime is very literal when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. It's fucking amazing. Like, it's one of those hype moments that the show is so good about. I always like to highlight sound design in anime. And, the big chunky booms during deciding moments in this are great. But one of the best ideas of whoever was responsible for the sound design of this show, and I should have looked this up. Let me see. Sound director was Fumiyuki Go, who did the sound direction for No Guns Live, Dyna Xenon, Space Battleship Tiramisu. Hey, there you go. And a bunch of other shows. And he decided, when Chigiri does his, finally, I am unshackled, I'm gonna go all out super sprint, to put a jet engine sound underneath.
Oh, that's peak.
It's genius. It's peak sound design. It's so good. It's so great. And you can't help but cheer that moment. It's amazing. And the show is full of these moments. Like, there's so many hype moments in this show that are framed so perfectly. And the whole presentation works together. You get ridiculous visuals, well-animated visuals. You get ridiculous sound design, and you get a fantastic soundtrack moment with a great theme song of a character or, highlight insert song for that specific moment. It's fantastic. So this is one of the moments where it's like, oh my god, this is amazing. I love this. Then we have another interesting character called Kuon. When he played soccer with his team, he decided to do it all by himself because the members of his former team weren't as ambitious as him and left him hanging. So he was like, no, but I wanna get good. I wanna actually take this sport seriously. But the other members of his sport, of his team were like, yeah, we're just doing this for fun, so whatever, do what you want, right? It doesn't matter if we don't win. And he got really angry with that, and he was really ambitious and stuff. So he was putting the whole burden of getting the win for his team on himself. And it's kind of like this mentality, of course, already gives him like this very egoistic kind of the thing that Jinpachi is trying to also develop in a specific way. But for Kuren, he has already like this very egoistic attitude when it comes to gaining the win. So he is willing to do some shady things. Let's just put it that way. But this gets also turned around in some of this gets turned around during the course of the series. So it's very interesting to see that, see him actually react to people on a whole team taking the thing seriously and giving him the idea, hey, no, playing as a team actually works if you have the right people with you. And that's really nice. Seeing him actually react to seeing real team spirit for the first time in his career, and then being like, oh, fuck, okay, this is a different path. I have not considered this before. So let me rethink my attitude towards all of this. So that was really cool. Another character I want to highlight before we get to our main character is Bachira, who's kind of playful demon child character. And he and Isagi quickly become besties. And by the end, we get a focus episode for Bachira, which is really neat because it brings the whole first season full circle to the first episode and explains why Bachira formed such an immediate attachment to Isagi. It's really cool. It's a really good episode because until this moment, Bachira was kind of like the fun, playful character, like I said, and who was able to get to turn around a game when they were in a tight spot and stuff like that. And he had very unconventional moves, like a lot of crazy dribble techniques and stuff like that, because he was mostly used to playing by himself and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. But he was also able to adjust to other characters. So he was a really fun character to watch play soccer. But you were always wondering, okay, what is his... All of these characters have kind of like a bit of baggage in the back of their head. So what's his baggage? What's going on here? Why is he the way he is? And the way they kind of introduce us to that and show us that in the kind of finale of this first season, and how they bring it all around to the first episode is really cool. It's really heartfelt. It's emotional. It's really well written and well executed in the show. So, yes, great character work in this. Speaking of great character work, let's get to our main character, who from the outside seems to be like, you know, standard sports anime protagonist, not like fiery shonen protagonist, but it's like he has like the most standard haircut, like Black Bob, whatever. And he is like, he feels like, oh, maybe audience stand in, whatever. But he is really interesting. And like I said, in the beginning, he's very conflicted about the whole thing because he's a team player. And what cost his team their place in the Nationals is he didn't make the final shot himself in that game, in the deciding game, but passed to a teammate who then fumbled the ball. And he has very much regrets of it. He's like, why didn't I try to take the shot myself? Why wasn't I confident enough? Why wasn't I confident enough in my abilities? What am I doing wrong? I always try to support my team. So this should have been the right move, but apparently it wasn't. So what am I doing wrong? How can I improve myself? How can I be better? So that's how he comes up in Blue Lock. And so he's really like kind of intimidated and put off by what Jinpachi is trying to do in the beginning. It's like, what? This is not the right way to play soccer. What is going on? And I cannot be that person. I cannot be that egoistic striker that you want. That's just not the kind of character that I am. But again, this is one of these pivotal moments. Like, in one game, Isagi scores the deciding goal against the team and thus kicks them out of Blue Lock. And after that, he walks through the ranks of their crying, crumble to the ground players and is like, I crushed the dreams of these 11 people. What is this feeling? It feels so good. That was hilarious. Blue Lock out here creating real soccer supervillains.
God.
And this is kind of like the trajectory they put him on, becoming like this super egoistic character that grows more and more in presence and confidence, and over the course of the first season starts devouring other players with his aura. And it's so cool. It's so funny and so cool at the same time to see this character grow in that way and become kind of like this asshole on the pitch. Not really. He's still a team player in a way, and he cares about his teammates. But when he's on the pitch, he can become, after a while, a real egotistic player and a bit of a monster at times, so it's super fun to see that. And yeah, the second part of the season also pits former teammates against each other, and just like in a shonen battle anime, we see their tragic backstory right before someone gets eliminated from Blue Lock. The show literally makes it look like they are dying. It's great. It's fantastic. So, and yeah, the mind games are turning the matches into goddamn JoJo's Bizarre Adventure battles. It's true. Like, there's so many like mind exchanges between characters. Oh, he did this now. Oh, this is not what he's supposed to do. What the hell? How do I react to this? This is crazy. Oh shit! And now I have to adjust. And now he is adjusting again. Oh fuck! It's great. Like if you want to see sports JoJo's, this is it. This is it. The drama, the thrills, the action, Blue Lock has it all. This is the crazy dumb shit I love to see in sports anime. I also love serious sports anime or more realistic sports anime like Haikyuu, but this is kind of the polar opposite to this. Same animation budget, kind of, which is great, but completely different approach. It's crazy as all hell. And yeah, in good anime tradition, everyone has a special weapon. Superior shooting, jumping power, big frame, etc. And part of the training is to find out what their weapons are and how they can improve on them. And Isagi's special weapon is amazing spatial awareness, which means he can basically see the whole playing field in his mind and all potential player positions if he wants to. Which is very similar to the main character in Aoashi, just dialed up to 11. And he's only using it instinctively at the beginning. So it's about him learning to actually utilize this and actually trying to make the most out of this, not just for himself, but also for the other players. So he's more the strategic coordinator, but not just that. Because Isagi becomes the top-ranked player, and the team, be it due to rivalry or admiration, starts to revolve around him. And of course, he subconsciously lets this get a bit to his head. And eventually his confidence is really tested since he doesn't seem to be able to beat anyone on his own. So, the show finds so many hype ways to highlight the development of its characters. Isagi is always trying to adapt and coordinate the other players, but then, due to circumstances, he has to play on the same team as Barreau, we mentioned earlier, who's like this big, very egocentric, very egoistic, and very brash and loud and brutal player who just won't budge and only wants to play his style. He's like, my way or the highway. If you can't deal with that, get out. I'd rather lose than adjust. He will score all the goals and everyone has to accommodate him. If that doesn't happen, like I said, he'd rather lose, even if it means it would end his career right here and now. And boy, does he love to call Isagi a donkey or hetakuso. So what do you do when you run up against such a talented hardhead? Well, Isagi puts it best. You may knock as many times at a person's heart as you want, but if you can't change them, you have to change yourself. So instead of letting the big-ass egoist Barreau decide the way to play, Isagi becomes the bigger egoist and gears the whole feints and mind games towards scoring goals by himself. And the moment Barreau realizes that Isagi uses his ass to score a goal himself, and then Isagi is the one throwing a look Barreau's way with the words, yeah, don't get in our way, donkey. Chef's kiss, my man. Chef's kiss. And there is an even better follow-up to that in the next episode with an additional twist that I won't give away. But the show is just full of these damn moments. I love it. Like, like I said, the framing, the staging of this is perfect. And yeah, that's pretty much what Blue Lock is. And I loved the first season of Blue Lock. Loved it. I feel like someone asked, hey, what sports anime does CC dig? And then they just went and made the nigh perfect version of this. The only thing missing at this point is really an audience and maybe a few more female characters than 1 or 0.5 really. That would make the show perfect. We got mind games, we got physical battles, we got battles of conviction, characters literally devouring each other's presence, glam battles, 5D soccer chess. It's all here, and it's so much fun. We got twists, turns, and surprises up the wazoo. Not everyone you pick to be a survivor or important character in this story will make it. So, yeah, good times had by all who watch this, not necessarily for the people who actually are the participants in Blue Lock. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the show's second season. Next up is the big game against Japan's national U20 team, and I couldn't be more excited. Hopefully with an audience this time, and judging from the number of manga volumes released so far, there's still a hefty amount of story to come. If you want to catch up and join me in salivating over Season 2, the show is mainly streamed on Crunchyroll, but also available on other services depending on your location. But yeah, Blue Lock is Hype Moments the show. Music, animation, surprising twists, and game-changing developments, characters being cool as fuck, it's all delivered in spades. If you have ever been tangentially interested in checking out a sports anime to see what all the fuzz is about, and if it's for you, this, in my opinion, is the perfect series to do so. Grab it while it's hot, y'all. My ego is telling me, come and play.
So, we go from soccer to samurai assassinations.
Yeah. At least the first one starts with S as well. So
death. Just death.
Death, yes. From the death of careers to the death of people, like
Lots
literal death.
Yes.
Lots of it.
Revenger.
Yes.
So
not revengeance, even though that's what I said in the summary, in the opening. But yes, revenge.
I mean, kinda, but
My boy Raiden is not in here.
no, he's off doing.
We have a Raizo.
We have a Raizo. That's true.
Close enough again.
Yes,
but no rules of nature. Sadly, I mean the soundtrack of this is good, but I wouldn't have minded it having a simple soundtrack to.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, Metal Gear Rising: Revenger.
Yes, Revenger. So, the brief overview is... Tricked into assassinating his own prospective father-in-law, righteous samurai Raizo Kurima is overwhelmed with guilt. In order to reclaim his honor, Raizo swears vengeance. There's the revengeance. On the Lord who gave him those misleading orders. In his pursuit, he is aided by self-proclaimed merchant of all trades Yuen Usui, who's actually one of the Revengers. Assassins who seek justice for the wronged and dispense bloody revenge on their behalf. Tragedy seems destined to follow Raizo as he becomes increasingly intertwined with the members of the Revengers. As he begins working as a vigilante alongside them, the complicated web between the corrupt Japanese political elite, the unscrupulous Europeans, oh, you know those Europeans, and the Revengers gradually reveals itself. The more entangled he becomes in these affairs, the more Raizo realizes that justice is as deceptive as the honor that he sought to redeem. So, this is a show produced by the studio Agiato, which we have not really talked about on this show before, but they have had their hands in a lot of stuff. Mostly is in between animation, but some of the bigger name stuff they've done in recent times is Ascendance of a Bookworm. Done some older Doraemon stuff. They have been around. Like, I have seen their name, but not
headlining something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, not as much. No, you know what? I lied. I just looked at this list and I realized they were the headlining studio on Izetta the Last Witch.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's from the past. Oh my god,
that was a fun show.
Yeah, it absolutely was. It could have done with a second season. I wouldn't have minded that.
Yeah, well,
but yeah, that had actually great animation, especially when it came to the flying. So this kind of makes sense. It's weird that they haven't crept up in other shows until now, when that are more action focused, because this is pretty action focused.
I guess they're just more of a support studio more than anything else, which is fine,
Maybe they're an offshoot of a different, bigger studio, which could be the case. But yeah, looking at the credits, they have done a lot of in-between animation and a lot of animation assistance, but not as many headlining gigs as you would expect, considering what they deliver in Izetta, in this as well, because this is a pretty good-looking show.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to do some quick research to see if they are an offshoot of someone else. It doesn't really seem like it. So, apparently they've been around since 1978.
Yeah, I mean, you do the work you get, so.
That's true. So, it was directed by Masaya Fujimori, who's kind of worked on a lot of the same stuff, just kind of ran down. So, he's probably been with the studio, as far as I can tell, for a minute. And, well, here's our first actually familiar name.
Hey.
Series composition and scripting done chiefly by the man, the myth, the legend, Gen Urobuchi.
He's back in anime land. I'm so happy.
We haven't really talked about him in a little bit.
Yeah, I don't remember when... I mean, we didn't talk about Psycho-Pass on the show. Like, we didn't review it.
No.
Only when we talked about one of the Fate shows, because he, wrote Fate Zero.
Yeah, and he had a brief hand in Noah Zero, but,
Yeah, but more serious concept. He didn't really write the show, which...
I think he wrote maybe 2 or 3 episodes.
He wrote, he wrote the first couple of 1 to 3 episodes or something, and you immediately notice once he doesn't hold the pen anymore, that show goes down the fucking drain. So, yeah, maybe just keep the man around, like, for the whole thing, and not just for the first couple of episodes, people. It's a good idea. But yeah, he in recent time, he has not done that much anime. I think he lent some hand in. I think the last thing he did was the Psycho-Pass movie, and after that, not really. Anything. I think after that he did.
Because he definitely did not have a hand in Psycho-Pass 3.
Yeah, the original concept, whatever. But he, mostly, of course, we know him from Madoka Magica, Fate Zero, and that.
Mm-hmm.
And he also wrote the horror Godzilla movies, but they were not horror because of the writing, but because of the animation from Polygon Pictures. No. So I didn't give them much of a chance, but the story might have been good, but I can't tolerate the animation style, so fuck that. Sorry, Gen. But after all this and Psycho-Pass and everything, he did some stints. He did some stuff in different mediums. Like first he did Kamen Rider Gaim. He wrote that story, and it's one of the best Kamen Rider shows I've seen. And more recently, the thing he did was Thunderbolt Fantasy, which is like this puppet show, which, I've seen one episode of that and was crazy and funny, but it's not my thing. Like, they are not expressive enough for me. Like, it always I like, when I was a kid, I liked stuff like Thunderbirds, the Gary, forgot his last name, shows, Captain Scarlet and stuff like that, who also work with puppet. But I was never that much into it. So I was like, I guess Thunderbolt Fantasy is written by Gen Urobuchi, but it's not my thing. So I didn't check it out. But everything I've heard about it was really glowing. Like, everyone who actually watched that show loved it.
Yeah, I only ever heard good stuff about it, but,
And it looked good for like a puppet show. The way it works, like the way the presentation of this was really good, like judging from the first episode that I checked out. But, again, it's not my thing. That's all. Maybe, I don't know, in a couple of years I will give it I will take a stab at it. But yeah, it's one of those, it's nice that this exists. And apparently it's super good, but it's a bit out of my ballpark. So
I didn't realize it had 3 seasons.
Oh yeah, it's a super popular show. I don't know if the story is finished. Would have to look that up, but apparently it was pretty popular and really good again. So, but yeah, now the Uro Butcher is back.
He has come back to strike again.
Yes, and he honors his nickname. He honors his nickname in the very first episode of this by killing the main character's wife.
Yeah.
In a very horrible way. Like Raizo, when he learns about that he was basically tricked into killing his father-in-law, he puts his revenge before letting his fiancée know that he's alright, which means he gets to her too late to stop her from committing suicide. And that also, like, the way this is portrayed, it seems to be a bit on the serene side, but we learn something about that scene later on in the season that gives this a much more cruel twist even than we would anticipate.
Oh, yeah, it kind of recolors it, and it's
like, Gen Urobuchi is not a man who pulls his punches.
No.
And this show is proof of that yet again. So, holy shit, I was like, oh my Jesus. Do you like your gut punches? Here you go.
They're back in full force.
Yeah. And it's not cheap, right? Like, it feels like it makes sense to put that in there. It's just, and it's not overly mean or anything. It's just like, oh, well, I guess I can see that. Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. Interesting as well is the title, Revenger, which is a pun on the word Riben Goto, because the way that's then pronounced is Ribenja, right? In the show. And that is kind of translated to by the show in this as odd job, I guess, or executor of odd jobs, whatever. So it's interesting that they managed to wring some pun out of the English word and the Japanese word in this case. So
yeah, I mean, because when Usui introduces himself as a Revenger to Kurima, he's like, what's that word? What do you mean? Because, this is still old feudal Japan where, there's not a whole lot of loan words from other languages.
Yeah, all foreigners. Like, I think there's some in this show, but I mean, we have very major faction in there that is Chinese, but still, it's not like, hey, there's what you have in anime where it's like English words, terms thrown around all the time, or German ones or whatever. So
yeah, I mean, outside of the purview of anime, I have said many times to you and to some of our other friends that Japanese is like a dying language. It's not going to happen in our lifetimes, but I wouldn't be surprised if 2, 3, 4 generations down the road it just doesn't really exist as it is.
I mean, language constantly changes, right?
That's true, but I mean, there's so many words in modern Japanese that are, loan words from other languages. And granted, that's other languages too, but it just feels like it's kind of going away as it is.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective, especially because, you speak one of the language as your native tongue that is one of the very dominant languages, especially when it comes to influencing other languages with some terms and stuff like that. There's a lot of words in Germany we use that are English because we never bothered creating a German word for it. And it's just the way it is. And it's also a very dominant business language. So, of course, the languages of the respective countries get transformed by that. I wonder if it's more dominant in Japanese than in some other countries, or if it's just feels like that when you experience it from the outside. Because a lot of the still very heavily Japanese stuff we probably don't see. But yeah, it's interesting. I can definitely agree on certain, at least from my perspective and my language, I can say that a lot of our language has changed over the past 10 to 20 years, especially when the internet came up, became so dominant. And there's so much English in the German language now. Not only if you work in a specific job, though in my job, it's like we basically just talk English all the time because we're an international company and we have a lot of international people working for us. So it makes more sense to just speak English all the time. But also if you don't, there are certain times when I try to say something in German and I can only think of the English word because it's so much more dominant in the day-to-day language, in my day-to-day language, not because I talk to you guys outside of my country or whatever, but also because it has become so common. So I wonder how the Japanese feel about this. I know a lot of people in my country don't like it, or the older generation, right? There's there is a German word for this. Why do we have to say it in English? It's because I talk English all the time. It's more bothersome to me to try to think of the German word, and usually most people, when I say the English word, understand the English word because for them it's also common. So why would I try to accommodate you and try to find the German word if this is closer to the way I just talk on a daily basis. So I wonder again how Japanese feel about that and if it's as dominant there, but I can imagine it. So yeah, interesting perspective.
For the older people, the traditionalists, which is a nice way of saying other things, but yeah, I'm sure they're probably about it, but language changes, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I don't think it will completely die out. There will be enough words still there, but it might switch to some of the language, being some parts of the imported language being more dominant than the usual stuff. I mean, we see dialects disappearing over here with some generations. I've seen this, so I assume this will also happen in Japan. But that's the way it is. The more people, the more you intermingle with other countries and their languages and stuff like that, and the more these languages become important in your daily lives, the more your own language changes. And that's fine with me, at least, I am from a different generation. I can also understand if you have your hold-ups, and it's hard, especially if you're older, to adapt to something you haven't learned. We have learned certain languages in school, but maybe the older generation hasn't, and it's tougher for them and stuff like that. And even from my generation, I have enough people who have real trouble with English. They don't feel confident speaking it in my company and everything, and they don't like us so heavily relying on it. Because, they haven't have never learned it as much as other people. So, yeah, really interesting. I would like to talk to a Japanese native speaker and hear their thoughts about this whole concept. That would be nice. Sadly, I don't know any. I know a person from Japan, but he's British, so what does he know? He only teaches English to Japanese people. So, hey, maybe he knows something about that. His pupils probably talk to him about it.
Yeah, as a linguist, he might have some insight.
Yeah, might hit him up and ask him what if he has any impressions from his Japanese students. But yeah, we have gone on one of our ginormous tangents. Interesting one, but maybe we should return to the show. So yeah, you talked about the setting earlier, which is kind of Meiji era, I assume?
Ish,
somewhat? Yeah. I mean, there are guns.
It might be the end and start of the Meiji Restoration. I don't think they ever really concretely say when the show is set.
I mean, it's that, and also it's kind of like this alternate universe thing with a bit of a steampunk vibe to it. Like you have a lot of anachronistic weapons and stuff like that in this show, and the central castle looks a bit too Western as this too. I don't think the Nagasaki castle looks like this. I'm not sure. I might be totally wrong here, but it was like this looks. I don't know if that is actually what Nagasaki looked like in that kind of period. So it's really something. It's fun to look at though, and it's fun to see all the weird things that probably shouldn't be in this show, considering what time period it's set in, to play out, especially the weapons, because the weapons are fucking crazy. We might just talk about that.
Historical fiction is just you can make it cool.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm currently listening to an audiobook of a series that is about dragons fighting in the Napoleon Wars, so whatever.
What?
Yeah. It's really stupid, but it's also super fun. Anyway, the weapons of the Revengers, if we're just on the topic. Like, Usui, the kind of leader of the group, is using this cool... He's like an artisan, and he creates stuff with gold and everything, and paints on, I think, porcelain or stuff like that. And he creates these cloths, like, drenched in gold, and he puts them on... When he kills someone, he puts it on their face, and it hardens after a while, and they suffocate. And it's like the super stylish killing method. Also, when they like fall to the ground, and then the mask shatters again, the golden mask. And while he's doing that, he says like this prayer. Apparently he's Christian.
And he's got a giant Virgin Mary tattooed on his back. So
Yeah, before the eyes of Holy Saint Mary, full of grace, for your sins and misdeeds, repent. Pretty badass. Then they keel over, and fall to the ground, and the golden cloth shatters. It's pretty neat. But also the other characters is cool. Like we have one who uses, like Neo, who's like this child character who uses like strings and something, for example, like a kite, the string of a kite to strangle someone in a very bloody way.
Yeah, I guess the strings are covered in like tiny shards of glass, and that's what causes the.
Yeah, and Soju has like these playing cards that are sharpened, bit like not Gambit, but we have seen other characters who use this kind of stuff. And then we have the dog, who is just
Murakami is just gets all yoked out when he takes out his longbow.
Yeah, longbow. That shit is a fucking ballista.
Pretty much.
He's shooting harpoons, man. Those are not arrows. It's ridiculous. And yeah, like you said, he gets all like super roided out. Like he becomes like super bulky and glows red, like Luffy going gear second, but only super muscular. And his steam is coming up from everywhere. It's is ridiculous, but it's fun.
It's like cool,
when he,
though.
Yeah, when he kills that one guy in the boat, like it's just
Man.
oh my god, like it's amazing. I loved it. I thought this was a really cool scene, and in general, his kills are some of the standouts because it's so fucking violent and so powerful, and I thought it was really cool. So these are the weapons, but let's talk about the characters and the story, I guess, and how it progresses. We talked about Raizo already, who has. We didn't mention his weapon. It's a sword.
Yeah, he's
a samurai.
He's just a samurai with a sword.
He's
a very straightforward character.
Yes. I mean, he's a super powerful samurai. Like, he has superhuman strength in kind of a way. He gets, like, this tool from Murakami. Is that the dog's name?
Mm-hmm.
Murakami, where he has, like, basically, he gets soccer shoes. He gets cleats. Hey, there's a connection to Blue Lock.
Well.
Yeah.
The Blue Lock was in us all along.
Yeah, we made it happen, guys. And that gives him like kind of a better way to propel himself forward and run on uneven ground or whatever. And then he is so impactful that he like cuts people in half, and he yells at them to basically stop them in their tracks. It's like this supersonic attack in a way. So it's a bit of a superpower, but not that over the top that it doesn't make sense anymore at all. But
I mean, if someone came at me sword drawn yelling, "Yeah!" I'd probably lose my mind too.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like the super high pitched scream. It's not like oh, but it's ah. It's like what? What's going on? Like this demon yell. It's funny, but it works. And his battles are also really cool. There are a lot of cool battles in the show. The most standout probably being like the first hit mission and then the last, but it's really neat. And yeah, like you mentioned with Raizo, and he has he gets tricked, and then his fiance kills herself, and he kills her dad, and that's why she kills herself and whatever. But in the beginning, it's a bit hard to feel really sad for Raizo, even though this is really horrible fate, but. That's what you get for blindly following orders, especially if your target means something to you. Maybe talk to them first, you dumbass.
Yeah, maybe figure that.
Yeah. Like, Soji, one of the more fun characters in this show, the guy with the sharpened playing cards, says, I was tricked, wouldn't even cut it in a gambling den as an excuse. And he's right.
Yeah.
Like, I feel sorry for Raizo's fiance and father-in-law, though. And to be fair, Raizo doesn't really try to deflect the blame or avoid responsibility. He knows he fucked up big time. And taking on the vengeance of people who don't have the means to exact it themselves is his way to repent for his sins, in a way. So, yeah, I get it. His character makes sense. And it's pretty cool. The doc, Murakami, is, as I mentioned before, is the gang's Q. So he provides them with all their gear and everything, but he's also like this super heavy marksman. Neo is a playful honey trap. That's how he works. He's like, he's kind of being like, hey, there's this one mission where they go to a brothel, and he's like leading on this super pervy dude, and then kills him. And that's the kind of way he does. And he has a lot of fun killing. He's kind of like this demon child monster in this show. Slightly psychopathic.
Yeah, Neo can turn on the kill switch pretty much any time. They never really, I feel like they never really concretely say whether Neo is a boy or a girl, but they they kind of insinuate that Neo might be intersex, but
yeah, there's this one scene where he actually plays with that, where he's having this kite competition and someone calls him a girl, someone says it a boy, and he's like, girl or boy, what is it, you fuckers? I don't, he's like, I want to keep it that way.
So I find that aspect of him kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's definitely like the trans character. I don't want to say fill-in, but he's the point of view character for that audience, I would say. Kind of weird to make him like the super psycho in a way, and the really damaged person. like the most damaged person in all of this. So this is a bit of
that's kind of
yeah. But he and Ewan or Usui, let's call him Ewan. This is his first name, I think. Seem to consider themselves killers that can't change their ways. But Ewan wants to show Raizo a possible different path because he feels like, oh, there's still a way for you out of this shit. You don't have to take, this route. But they themselves, like he and Neo, are kind of like connected through their common fate and what they have done in the past and everything. And they consider themselves like, hey, we are out without redemption. We can try doing this by taking these jobs that help people, but there's no hope for us, really. For Neo especially. Like, they have made their whole character. Like, she. And it's like they, even when Ewan is going like against this mantra and doing his thing where he's trying to show Raizo a different path, Neo becomes really antagonistic, where it's like, you're not really trying to become soft on me, really, because then I would just kill you. It's like,
maybe calm down a little.
Yeah. And Neo and Soji take jabs at Raizo a lot, which he barely acknowledges aside from the occasional frown. Especially Soji is baiting him hard, and it only gets worse when they have to share a room.
But Raizo is like mostly unflappable throughout all of it.
Bait. Yeah, he's completely which pisses Soji off even more, which is great. But after a while, they come to an understanding, and Soji, even though he's a drunk and a gambler, is apparently a man of his word, which impresses Raizo enough to tell Soji that he's more of a samurai than Raizo, which is, of course, the last thing Soji wants to hear. So their character dynamic is really fun. It's probably the most fun of this show. I really liked it a lot. What did you think about that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think their back and forth was probably one of the best parts of the character writing.
And the whole setup for this, like the whole mission thing, is like the missions for the Revengers are giving out by this weird mini church thing. Have like this weird CIA preacher that like comes and gives them some special, like, it has some very special opinions on who is deserving of God's love and who isn't.
Yeah.
How very southern United States of him.
Yeah. Yeah, Gerald Kano. He's when Ewan kind of starts to insinuate that he might not exactly be on board with some of these ideas, Gerald kind of starts to get a little confrontational. Yeah, not outwardly so, but like boy, you better watch your mouth level.
Yeah, you immediately get the people that he probably abuses his power to further his own goals. Like a lot of other ostensibly religious people. So he's like, hey, this is my faith, but also I'm in it for the money. So, yeah. A cool aspect of one of our main character, although this is more of an ensemble show just in general. Each of them kind of get the big screen time. Like, Rise is the one we get to introduce first, but there are also a lot of episodes where other characters take the center stage, so I wouldn't even... he's the audience character. He's the point of view character that introduces us to this story, but yeah, he not always is the main character. It's not like the whole story is just about him and his journey. It's a big part, for sure, but it's also sometimes as important what the other characters do. Raizo discovers naturalism for Japanese art. Sure, why not? I don't think this is the way this worked, but it's really funny how the art dealer guy, patron, whatever, who recognizes who sees his style is like, oh, this is a completely new way to draw things. What is this? I can sell this. It's like, is that how it happened in Nagasaki? I have my doubts.
Yes, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's cool, and it becomes an interesting part. Like, the art gives Raizo the chance to create instead of kill. like his patron, the art dealer, tells him that his hands are gift from Buddha and that he should cherish them, which surely isn't the way Raizo has thought about his hands for quite a while, since they are what ultimately took everything from him, or at least are an essential part of his identity as a human weapon. I wonder if Ewan took up fine crafts for the same reason, or if it was the other way around for him, meaning he started as an artisan and then became a killer for quote-unquote reasons.
I wonder about that, because they don't really delve into that.
No, not really.
Yeah, after Raizo discovers his artisanry, I think it's Ewan kind of gives him the name Taishin.
Yeah. He nudges him. That's the thing what I was talking about when I'm in there, when he's trying to push him into a different path. Like, he's like, no, here, you're very gifted at this shit. Do this instead of what we do, please. This won't save you. This won't save your soul. But maybe if you do this instead, you can escape this cycle of violence that we are engaged with, and you can actually live a fulfilling life even after suffering such a great loss. So, yeah, he definitely, and he gives him the special name that you mentioned, which becomes like his pen name, I guess.
Yeah,
interesting. Another thing that, again, talking about the dynamic between Soji and Raizo, that stuck out was Soji has a habit of saying surprisingly smart and empathetic things, but he doesn't realize it himself and is taken aback when Raizo takes them at face value and commends him for it. I love that dynamic a lot. And I like that Raizo, quote-unquote, gets over it after a while. Not internally, but externally. Like his loss, his baggage, whatever. In a lot of stories with this kind of setup, the motivated by loss revenge character stays this brooding husk for a long time until someone comes and pulls them out of it, which is fine and totally understandable. Berserk is a great example of this, or more recently, Vinland Saga. But it's also nice to see someone for a change who is like, wow, I sure fucked up royally, but I'm going to try to make amends from the get-go by helping people, and also not going to try to isolate myself from society or the other people in my life. I mean, Raizo stays kind of reserved and subdued in his demeanor, but that's just a samurai upbringing. He, has lived a certain lifestyle and lived by a certain code all his life, so it makes sense that he would adhere to this familiar structure to an extent to not lose his grip on reality after what happened to him. And, he still has a problem with valuing his own life, though, that's for certain. That becomes very evident in the episode where we learn that the guy who fucked him over was much heavier involved with the Chinese opium trade than expected, which is kind of like the thing this whole story, the whole plot hangs on, is motivated by, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, Raizo wants to face the Chinese alone, which is, of course, partially him taking responsibility, but he definitely also wants to punish himself by walking into a situation that is pretty certain to kill him. And he's not making a secret out of that either. He's very bluntly stating, I killed the people that meant the most to me, so why should I worry about my own life? It's worth nothing. So, yeah. Definitely still needs to gain back a feeling of self-worth here. And I feel like Ewan thinks that the art can give him that. So that's why he's pushing him towards that kind of career path, at least as an alternative. And hopefully as a complete different path, eventual full work path instead of killing. And yeah, when it comes to structure, the story is a pretty neat crime procedural. It's basically a cop show in a way. More a Mission Impossible works the best because that's the closest thing you get. You have the gadgets, you have specific missions, but there's an overarching plot, and that is the thing with the opium trade in Nagasaki. There are some new players here, and also the Chinese are involved in everything, but we don't really know how at the beginning of the show. And there's also a lot of talking and discussing about that. But then you have also the assassin missions and action, so I feel it's pretty well balanced. And of course, you have all the character work. You have some cool dark stuff in here, like the lair with all the opium addicts is creepy that they come to. It feels very real and unsettling. Those probably existed back in the day, and in that way. And, you have some side episodes that are more character-focused, where it's like, there's this episode with the Doan Company, which is like this circus thing that Neo came from.
Mm.
And the ringmaster is kind of the guy who apparently held his reins or whatever, or Neo's reins. And it was also a really unsettling episode. I wonder if the one considered Neo an abomination because killing seems to come easy to Neo, or because Neo was trans. I don't know. But,
maybe a little of both.
Both, yeah. But he clearly states that when he talks to Ewan, so he's like, this is an abomination before God. This is a demon child, whatever. But yeah, I wonder why he exactly says that. But yeah, that's also a really dark storyline, probably the darkest.
Mm.
And it's neat. It's like, hey, yeah, this feels like an Urobuchi show. You get to these moments like, oh boy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So if you're squirmish about dark subject matter, prepare yourselves. And yeah, we have another cool or interesting character on the Chinese side of things with Leo, who's a force to be reckoned with. There's like this martial arts chakra power thing going for him. And we have some other characters with interesting weapon sets and stuff like that, like rival assassins group and stuff, and who, let's say, the battle against them, the fight did not go as I expected.
No.
So that was really funny and fun. And yeah, so there's a lot of good action in this show. There's a lot of interesting, there's some mystery, there's some intrigue where it's like, hey, what is actually, who's behind? I mean, we know who's behind all of this, but what is their actually goal? What are they doing? What they're doing? How are the Chinese involved in this? And the way the Chinese are displayed here is very interesting. And then we have our main character, our main set of characters, and their interactions are super fun. Like I said, the highlight probably being Soji and Rigel's interactions because they're just fun. But also, when you have the other characters clash with each other, it's really cool. And seeing just the world they live in and what kind of effect their missions have on this world, and also how each of them views what they do in a slightly different light. So that's cool. And Ewan and Rise are definitely intent on upholding the code and would rather go against the chapel that they get their missions from than becoming their lapdogs. Like the code of, hey, if someone wants to recruit our services, they have to bite in this gold, and we want to help people that can't help themselves anymore because they're either dying or they're not powerful enough or whatever. They don't have the means. And then, after a while, the chapel is going like, hey, no, you're just going to go and kill some people here. And you're like, what? But
that ain't how it works, boyo.
Yeah. So, yeah. And Doc seems to be dedicated to Ewan, so he basically falls in line with them. There is a part where, they're just offered this big pile of money. And it's like, yeah, you have to just go and kill people. And, you and Rizzo and Doc are like, this is not really revenge. We should just reject this offer. And Soji is obviously blinded by the big amount of money. Understandable. He's a gambler.
Neo just wants to kill.
Neo pretends to go with what Ewan is doing, but ultimately will do whatever Neo wants. Which is killing, like you said. But yeah, it's like, oh, this is where it's going. Like, the chapel is a sham or a scam, and there, are other Revenger factions that definitely don't adhere to Ewan's idealism of avenging real grudges and are just in it for the money. So this is kind of like where the story is going. And yeah, it's cool. I like it a lot. The story is pretty straightforward, but there are some nice twists to certain characters' motivations that are revealed in the later episodes. So it's not as predictable of a show as you might think, especially not for a procedural. So, yeah, it's cool. Some good fights, especially in the final episode. I assume you agree with that, John. I'm not sure. I don't know how you felt about the whole progress of the story. Was it too slow for you? Was enough happening all the time?
I mean, I feel like at the start, it's kind of a slow burn. Obviously we got to get to know each of the main characters. Yeah. And then when they bring in Jinkudo, you kind of start to see small bits of what's going on. But then, it sort of gradually picks up pace after that. And then, I mean,
the clash between Raizo and Liu is awesome, and I feel like that sort of set the stage for what comes, after that, and the rivals we meet.
Yeah.
And just in general, it was just a pretty tightly packaged story. Which is interesting because apparently there's also a manga adaptation of this. I feel like, as far as I can tell, the anime was the original. I think the manga is just an adaptation of it because it started after the anime did, and it's apparently still running. CC and I were trying to look up like manga chapters or the tankobon, and there's zero information on the manga side. So, got to assume it's just maybe there's stuff that'll get fleshed out in the comic version, but there's literally zero information.
Don't know if we will get more of this.
I mean, the way it ended, I don't know. Well,
Yeah,
maybe, but probably not.
Probably not. But what surprised me a bit after finishing this, I've heard some so-so voices on the series, but I really liked it. I'm a sucker for procedurals, and I just like Urobuchi's dialogue writing. Like the tense exchange between the top investigator Isarizawa and Ishishido in episode 7 is a good example. Or Raizo's conversation with the priest Sada in the pub. I also like the scene where Yuen and Shishido talk about Raizo's art, and both of them have a different perspective on the obvious grief emitting from his work.
Yeah.
And it also gives you a good view into Shishido's fucked up mind space. Like, he is the right kind of polite jackass that you really want to see him eat shit in the end. Good villain, I think, and that's important too. I mean, he's not like the most action-heavy, like he's not fighting himself or anything, but he's like the puppet string guy, and he's an arrogant asshole and everything, and he's not stupid, so it kind of works. I mean, that bitch has a goddamn pond with piranhas in it. That's some James Bond villain shit. And
that's right, I forgot.
And he goes out the appropriate, impactful way too. I clapped. So that's good shit. That's how you like it. It's not like the biggest show or anything, but it works really well. And like I said, the dialogue writing is really good. The action is really good. It looks really good. I like the character designs in this. They're not super over the top, but they're very sharp. I think it's good.
And all the characters feel uniquely designed from one another. It's not like I can't remember Buchigire, that other show I watched, where it's like the character designs all kind of rammed together, and it was kind of like I see you're trying to do some like alternate history magical Shinsengumi show, and it was like severely average. But this is at least a couple of steps above that.
Yeah, and it feels kind of like, despite its, premise and, the ridiculous weaponry and everything, it feels more like a grown-up show. Just in terms of how it handles its story, the talk about grief and everything, and the way the characters talk to each other, and, aside from some of parts in the action scenes, the conversations feel like conversations people actually might have about these kind of topics. So it has a kind of grip to it, where it's like, yeah, this feels gritty, this feels kind of real, this feels like a good realistic cop show in a way, just in kind of a bit over the top anime show action land with weird steampunk samurai that I don't know, some of them use just ballistas as bows, shoot harpoons into bows and make them shatter into a million pieces. But that's just the outside framing. But the core feels a bit more grown up than I expected this to be. I expected this to be like the super action heavy, super bloody show, and it is that, like, in parts. But it's also very dialogue driven show. It's focusing on very minute details when it comes to characters, and also how the whole plot is staged and the story works and everything, why characters do what they do. So I like that. I like the whole show a whole damn lot. Admittedly, it's one of my personal niches, but still, if you like your vigilante, secret agent, spy, assassin, police team, procedures, whatever, you will probably like this one as well. Like, the ending is pretty definitive, but I can see them being able to walk back certain decisions made from the final episode if they want to do another season. If they do, I'll definitely watch it. I don't know about you. If they don't, it's a pretty neat self-contained series with a group of cool characters, a decent straightforward crime story, well-written dialogue by Renji Oki and the Butcher, and of course, good animation. Definitely not wasted time, in my opinion. I don't know, John. How did you? What would be your final resume about this? And where can people watch it? It's also important.
I mean, yeah, I had a good time watching it. So, would I watch more of it? Depending on how they frame it and where in the story it is, because I kind of feel like. I think we both probably saw what was going to happen at the ending from the onset, but how they were going to frame it was the question. But, it was a good time. It was a great watch. It is available to watch on Crunchyroll, and depending on where you live, it may also be on Netflix. This one, according to Live Chart anyway, not distributed as widely over, the billions of streaming services out there. So, but it is available to find and watch pretty readily. Yeah, show was a lot of fun, as much fun as you can have with a group of assassins. Great character writing. And I guess you could say that the Doctor turned off his own inhibitors.
He sure did. And that is a wrap on the 143rd episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in this podcast is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to virt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for our review index and more. Leave us comments and questions on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in, we hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut.
Take care, everybody.
Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
When an immortal makes his last stand, can the world be saved from itself?
And tragic villains born from legacy.